We have returned here in Storm Competitive Series for the second round of the Open Qualifiers here in Day 2, starting us off in Game 4. And we've seen all week long, these games are getting better and better. They're starting to heat up. My partner today, Mr. Sticky himself, my name is Chief Cass. My friend, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. As we get into kind of more of the later rounds now that we're in the second and final Open Qualifier, you mentioned that aspect of these games heating up because the teams recognize there are only so many opportunities left for them to guarantee their spot in the closed qualifier. And if you don't play at your best, if you're losing games here or there, that's going to risk your position and it's going to drop you into uncertain territory, something I'm sure all of our competitors on the board today are going to look to avoid.
And also, we've been talking about how teams want to play. Are you going to be bringing out strategies? Are you not going to be bringing out strategies? Are you going to be YOLOing it and playing aggressive? Are you going to be playing your best maps? We've seen some of these teams bring out maps that we're not used to seeing. Looking at you, Slaughterhouse, bringing out those theme parks. They're known for that map. They played it 1,000 times and teams know how they play it. But nonetheless, teams get caught off guard when that theme park rolls on through. Or you're going to bring out a traditional map like Oregon, or I love to call it Oregon, where everybody and their mother has an expert strategy on this map. Everybody knows how to play it, and you're kind of an equal playing field.
Yeah, we know how Oregon plays. I mean, it's just a snooze fest. We just did have some confirmation on one of the first maps, so we'll go into that in just a little bit. You can kind of get a deeper idea of some of the teams that we've got playing today. For our first match, it's Le Club versus Team Vale, which is sure to be a really great match. Le Club performed excellently on the first day of play, and really, I think, beat some teams that people weren't entirely predicting. Especially if you look at that final match that we had on stream for day one, Le Club versus Kevin 7, came all the way down to overtime. And it was back and forth. I was watching Sovereign's POV on his Twitch stream. He was excited. He was hyped. They were really battling it out, and you couldn't tell who was going to win that match until the final moments. And I've got a good feeling this first one today is going to be of the very same nature. Of course, Le Club is the remnants of Hostile Actions, which is a team that we saw come through in Season 4. They didn't have, you know, the best run, but still they were pretty consistent, and when it came down to the playing field, we kind of knew what to expect from them. On the other side of the board, Team Vale. Brand new team, but the players on this team have a mountain of experience, Chief. Let's get a little bit into that.
And not just a mountain of T3 experience, that coveted T2 experience. And Sticky, I don't know if you spent a lot of time on the TL today, the Twitter timeline, but there's some beef in this 10-man lobby, as there's French Canadians on the side of Le Club, since they're all French Canadians, and Hypers himself is also a French Canadian. So they had some words back and forth about who is the better Canadian, who's the particular better French Canadian. So I think there's a lot of line on the line for this game, not just to win the round 4, but to be once and for all proven definitively without a question of doubt who is the best French Canadian player in Storm Competitive Series.
That's always a fun narrative to chat about. Specifically, if you want to kind of look a little bit deeper into the roster for Team Vale, they've got Marmalade, you mentioned Hippers, Afer as well, Frozen, and Psycho. So we've got kind of a mix of those T2 superstars, especially Marmalade. I've seen a lot of good stuff from her in some of the final games for the first CL stage or the second CL stage last season. Marmalade really blew her opponents out of the water, even if, you know, maybe her team wasn't always there to back her up. She's very consistent, and she's a pretty hot gunner. Afer definitely falls into that category as well. He's played for a lot of the top teams inside of T3, and now with his excursion going up to play the Challenger League, he is really going to be one to watch. Frozen has spent a lot of time as a coach, I've noticed. So it's interesting that he's coming in to actually play and, you know, have a little bit more experience on the playing field as compared to more of that kind of backroom management coaching aspect.
We also have some great matchups happening off stream, particularly looking at Slaughterhouse and Aggro. Aggro has been a roster that has been impressing me. We've casted them a couple of different times on stream, not only on the primary broadcast, but on the secondary broadcast. And unfortunately, they live up to their name perfectly. They're an extremely aggressive team, and they also seem to be very comfortable on one particular map. That is that coveted Clubhouse. And every time they take any roster to there, it is just a lights out performance for them. And also, I think the secondary broadcast is taking on Sleeping Giants versus Air Force Gaming. That should be an interesting broadcast, but it isn't quite as powerful. Both those rosters are sitting somewhere towards the middle ground of our qualifier, but they have the option and are more than capable of starting to work their way towards that top 10. And just a reminder, the top 10 in this qualifier will move on to the closed quals, but again, we're only about 1/3 of the way through.
You want to get your spot in the closed qualifiers, especially with all the teams that we've seen already. I know there's a few little surprises being prepared to be sprinkled in as soon as we get out of the open qual phase, but that same dynamic that I mentioned earlier, you have to continuously look at that. It's sort of the idea that if you don't play at your best, you kind of relinquish the ability to define your own destiny. And it puts you in a similar situation that you would experience when you have had kind of a run of bad luck towards the end of a regular season for a league. Your chances at playoffs, or in this case, close qualifiers, are out of your hands, and it can sometimes depend on the performance of other teams. Nobody likes to be, kind of dodging back and forth between the Twitch stream and the tournament page and saying, are we going to make it? Are we not going to make it? It can really come down to a hair, and that can be a lot of stress to place on a player's shoulders.
And the Gatekeepers actually had that happen in the first round of qualifiers. They would finish in 11th. The reason they were kicked down from 10th was their head-to-head and round differential. And the Gatekeepers have a plethora of experience. Again, that coveted T2 level of experience. And yet, one mistake somewhere down the road, whether or not they were memeing, having fun, maybe they brought out a cab and decided, you know what, we just want to beam against our opponents today. But that one decision or whatever happened through those 9 rounds ended up costing them dearly. But they are still a favorite to make that top 10 here in round 2. And they're sitting perfect right now. They're sitting almost at that 10th spot, sitting in 12th, taking 1 loss earlier on. I believe they would take that loss against Aggro. Yeah, that was the game that went to overtime on Clubhouse.
Aggro has really shocked me with their performances. I mean, you look at all their players and we sort of know, we hear the stories of them from ranked and, all of their escapades in search of the elo, but you don't get a whole lot of opportunities to see them play in kind of a T3 more competitive aspect. And so I've really loved the kind of the definition that you see behind playing really aggressive, playing that ranked style, leveraging the gun skill, and how that comes into play when you're sort of not allowed to play with 5 gunners, 5 entries to just run into the building. I mean, you have to have some semblance, some routine, and some normalcy in kind of bringing more flex, bringing more supports. When you look at Team Vale, I think they do have sort of that tendency to play a little bit more fragger. You've got Afer, you've got Psycho as well, and we've seen Psycho play really well. If you look at when he was on Lycus Empire, I mean, he was just crashing the gates and getting just these massive amount of kills. And so you put him on this team, I think it's a good environment for him to do well, and I'm really looking forward to seeing if we're going to have, that full throttle aspect of just fragging out all of us.
And returning back over to Aggro, I love the idea, like you're saying, that ranked style of play, but we've seen it in professional play before. Rosters just being grabbed by all the best mechanical players being crammed into a roster. TSM and G2, you can probably make the argument that they have some of the best gunners on their team, and maybe even the French too. BDS is phenomenal. They have some of the best gunners there too. So it's something that can work out well, but we just have to see what actually happens. That game will be happening off stream, and they're already beaming each other. Delicious.
We've got that good rivalry going. The energy is here. One thing we kind of glossed over is our map veto. We've got Oregon first, so we'll kind of develop a little bit into that further once we get the word on what's to see in the future of this match. Ace, the first ban. I don't know. I mean, Ace, I guess Ace. You kind of don't leave the opportunity for something that I've sort of been describing, kind of the offense's worst nightmare, which is a Thatcher and a Maverick ban with Cade still up for the defense. And I mean, you know how that's gonna feel. It's no fun. And so having Ace, definitely impactful. We see a lot of Ace when you're looking at the top floor. He's good to open up the walk-in closet wall. He's got the AK-12, so not only can you put him there and you can count on him to actually open that wall, but you know that if you put the Ace in that area, he's going to be able to win those heads-up gunfights because the AK-12 is just a machine. Thatcher ban as well. Now, Wamai, we could look for the final Cade ban, maybe something closer to a Mira or even an Incel ban, Chief. What are your thoughts?
I'm still perplexed by Ace. I would rather take out the Maverick. Like, you want to deny access to the map. The best way of doing that is with that, well, map, because he can cut through any wall that you bring, but I will double down. It will be an information operator. It'll be the Mira, and there she goes. You want to also, as an attacker, again, remove all of those obstacles, and Mira is going to be the largest obstacle. She just places one of her black mirrors facing any direction, and you as an attacker will never be able to enter in from that direction. And if you want to go back to the importance of that Ace ban, well, if Mira's in play and you don't have access to an Ace, it means you only have access to those Habanas, and it can become cumbersome dealing with those Mira windows. So at the end of the day, just remove her in the ban phase and you have a little bit less pressure.
I think, you know, with the Maverick up on the board, your hard breach shouldn't be totally depleted here when you look at kind of the spread of the resources for the basement first. Your main priority has got to be opening up that E-box hatch. We see a lot of attacks and even defenses that hinge on the battle to get that hatch open, whether it's actually moving into meeting to get the opportunity to open that hatch, or to, you know, just open it, you know, apply pressure in the E-box, try to push onto the site. A lot of those things need to have the E-box hatch open. You can get frags, you can drop them down into pillar. That makes dislodging the player we see off in Nagoyo, somebody with a deployable shield, maybe a Jaeger or a Wamai behind pillar, that much easier. You look at the Maverick, who's kind of the other hard breacher. He doesn't generally go up to the hatch unless they've got some kind of prevailing utility that's stopping you from opening it time after time. Usually you'll see the Maverick be sent downstairs. He can open up Maverick holes along the elbow wall, especially if we see the defenders forfeit that off early, give it up and reinforce the rotate. Maverick being able to open that wall, I would say, is paramount, because you have to cut down that cross-section through the objective. Planting and taking control of storage itself is going to be near impossible if you don't have that wall open, because the defenders, you can't really apply consistent leverage to that back rotate area near laundry without having an opening in the elbow wall. The defenders, they're going to creep up. They're going to slowly inch forward. You know, you try to take some control, you peek it, you go for it. But as soon as you fall back, the defenders are just going to move right back in. You have to have those angles predetermined.
So Vale's going to elect to bring out a Clash. If we learned anything yesterday from the Lycus Empire game, they would have control of the basement bomb site in the first 45 seconds of the round, and the attacker would start to establish their crossfires, and you have to create a strategy to deny access anywhere close to the site. Clash will do that. She's just basically a moving roadblock and a moving minigame. It requires a ton of utility to do her, remove her from play, and also you're gonna have to establish that crossfire. You send in one of your lifelines downrange, her shield's gonna fly away, and then you answer with bullets or nades. However, it puts too much pressure on the attackers to deal with that minigame, and if they kind of go away from it, they forget about it, put it on the back burner, it can cost them dearly in the end.
As the Clash player sitting on the backstairs, you have to have really good game sense, because you're not sitting there protected by ADS, I don't think, from Psycho. He's probably got them deeper inside the objectives, so if Rosen gets a little bit too happy, he tries to push up, he tries to attack and take more control of the rear stage, he could be risking a frag grenade, which is going to take him out if he's unsupported. Afer will claim the opening frag. He eliminates David. Huge. We saw how well David played against Kevin 7. He was securing multi-kills nearly every round. Afer for another one now as he finds Zag, and now Le Club facing heavy tension, and they're not having a whole lot of luck securing Freezer.
We were talking about dealing with mini-games, and it was not the Clash that started things off. It was an offside pressure over by Freezer. A rotate down the laundry stairs might be a way to deal with that, but no answer yet. It's still wide swings one by one for Afer, collecting more damage, but he's going to lose some damage in return. And returning back over to his box, he's going to be holding that tight angle. Clash is going to take a full utility dump straight to the face, but she hasn't been pushed away at all until that frag grenade collects to his teammate. Afer now falling, and part of Freezer control has been achieved. But still, Clash is tasing away. You're going to have to find more kills. They'll come off the flank. Devil collecting one. A step in the right direction. Both rosters find themselves at equal man count. but Father Time is going to be against the attacking team of Lake Club. They're going to have to start to move quickly. Well, they will do so, but it's going to be to the grave. Psychosis collects 3.
Really good job there from Le Club. They were able to almost pull it back. Frag grenade found A first, so you eliminate the support of the Clash, playing close inside the freezer and then pushing down the main stairs. It looked like there was a second pick, but Psycho, he lived up to it. He got the frags and he just bounced from angle to angle to angle, very fluid, very agile, able to get all the picks necessary and make sure that Le Club were not able to totally take control of the objective and force Team Vale into conceding the control that they had. Good time waste there. Le Club, even with the time waste, I think they reacted in an appropriate way. They got the frags. They knew that, you know, if we're down by the man count, we have to kind of turn up the tempo. We have to increase that heat. We have to put the pressure on the defense because a refrag in a man down situation when the time is low, you need something on your side. If that's going to be pushing A for out of position in freezer and getting pressure from the main stairs, that could be huge. And the club almost were able to net it back. Unfortunately for them, it's Team Vale who go up 1-all.
A single deployable shield will be utilized. That's going to be Frozen Shield on that smoke operator, but you will still be able to generate plenty of minigames, particularly those Malusi Woblums. You'll have 3 of them that you can place in just about every insertion point that Lake Club can utilize. Whether or not you put one over the top hatch by North Attic, you put one by the White Stairs, and then the other one is kind of up in the air. You can put it over by South Games, you can put it over by Trophy, but your whole goal is to bait away that explosive utility of the attackers. And we're also going to see one of the new strategies, placing all those reinforced walls over by T1. This is going to give you access and denial of the attackers to send that hard breach utility as well as that soft destructive utility upwards towards North Attic. Because if you had a Kite in play, or in this case it's going to be the Mute in play, you cannot allow the attackers to destroy that gadgetry.
I like the way that Vale are testing the waters here. They've got players off-site. They're not just totally kind of walking into this and say, okay, let's just do the default setup. Let's see how the default works. If that's unsuccessful, you know, rotate it. No, Vale are playing this how they want to. They're feeling comfortable. They've got roam set up. They've got players off-site. This could be very petulant. If you see Le Club, you know, try to go for a late rotate, or they have trouble clearing the mute jammer, I guess as it would be, off of the walk-in closet wall, you've got somebody down there to kind of capture it. But they have angles open. There's a shot in the floor. I think that was from a breaching charge. So you're able to kind of look down, but I don't think anybody's really going to cross into the garage, so that angle is not going to do them too many favors. Here we go for Afer, though. The Psycho falls back. The Malusi will look to try and take his place, creeping up the hallway. No pressure inside of the classroom yet, but Dom is still trying to tempt it on the fringes of the objective. But look outside the main door. You've got, it looks like the Habana prone, waiting for over-aggression. If Afer tries to take control of lobby itself, he could be in a real rough situation, but it looks like it's actually Devils, and he's rotated off. Straight through the barricade, guns down Frozen. What a first pick.
And the most important operator on the defense, the smoke has fallen. 30 seconds of time denial just instantaneously evaporated into the wind based off poor micro positioning. And that's going to force the defense to get very aggressive. They will do so. Psychosis collecting one, but Devils will get the instantaneous refrag, and it's going to be turned and converted into another one. Now, the club has a +2 man advantage. You're going to have to hold the line as best as possible. Marmalade will attempt to do so, but she'll also lose her life in that process. Psychosis forced to stand on the White Stairs, attempting to collect 3. Diffuser has been seen. He knows it's been rotated over by the foosball table. He dished out some of that damage to Devil, but not enough to actually collect. And Limbo on the swing will finish off Psychosis. An interesting round by both these rosters, but the attackers of Le Club takes the victory.
What a deep angle there for Limbo, and the opening kill, I mean, Devils just, he gave his team the biggest boost that they could have ever needed. And I spent that entirety of the prep phase, and even somewhat into the action phase, building up Team Vale, playing their offsite hold, but their roamers, I don't think they really achieved much. They weren't slowing things down, they weren't really distracting Le Club, and you kind of have to make that decision. We're going to roam, we're going to pester the attackers, and if we just get ignored, you kind of need to rotate back because you're not having an effect, and you being offside is actually a detriment to the defense because it weakens the confidence of the anchors you have on site, because they know if they have reinforcements, it's going to take them a while to get back into position. The club are a team that maintains good control of the momentum. They're very speedy, and if they spot an opening, like a magnificent shot through a barricade onto a player hiding at pit, they're going to act on it.
Now, was that an opening they spotted, or was that just bullets going through a soft window?
It didn't look like there was totally drones or, any persevering intel. I think mostly for Devils, it was a mix of luck and game knowledge, knowing that somebody kind of is going to linger around the door or maybe be caught going through the rotate.
That's more than fair, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you generated your kills, whether or not it was through a lucky wallbang, or when we were on Oregon with Lycus Empire, you get breaching charge kills. It doesn't matter. As long as you get confirmed that kill, your roster will be in the better position. And also, speaking of that Lycus Empire game, we're going to see a strategy that was utilized a lot there. It's also being utilized by Slaughterhouse, and that is putting your man count downstairs over on the kitchen side of the map. You put your nitro cells there, and it forces the attacking team to either deal with that minigame as soon as possible, or they fear the nitro cells down the road. And actually, the attacking teams would elect to deal with that offside pressure almost instantly. And they got control of that first floor so quickly, the defense wasn't even able to react. But so far, Lake Club has decided not to deal with that. Instead, they're going to place those charges flat on the floor and cut down to the basement rotates.
Hippers there with a cheeky angle, cheeky identify, and some good shots out on a Devils. The club have now been distracted. You see, Dom is totally out of position. He's not able to act with his utility, and he's still trying to cover their flank. And honestly, for Dom, I'm not totally certain what the plan is. He's going to maybe solo push into the lobby, and this kind of walks right into Vale's trap. Afer's holding the long angle. Against the M762, it's all about the surprise here. The MP5 is manageable, but it's not the rifle of the attacker in the firepower and the range capability. More rotates from the club, additional support to try to clear out Afer. This round, he is being acknowledged and pursued much better on the roam. Vale are wasting a lot of time here, and look at the checklist, the objectives, the steps. What have the club gotten done? Do they have the walk-in closet wall open? Are they confident to sit inside of the trophy room door? What is the next step in this plan beyond trying to pursue the roamers?
Doing that, finding that opening kill. And you still have to deal with an on-site pressure. Just because you killed somebody on site doesn't mean anything, because there's information in the bomb sites for Vale. They're just going to send a nitrocell upstairs and connect straight with you. Now, nitrocell has been spent by both of the defenders who have access to it. That's a huge oversight in the round, and your best macro strategy sacrificed for just quick swings. They're trying to achieve cheap kills, and they didn't achieve any of that whatsoever. Now, Devils will fall, but everybody from Vale is isolated over on the white stairs. They're stacked up and they're piling up. You have to swing and leave that position, but they can't, because everybody from Lake Club is over by the big window. But also, it's a fatal funnel for Lake Club. They have to swing on through. They'll do exactly that. Switch back and forth between these two teams. Zag's collecting one and another one for just Dom. It's everybody falling for Vale, and they get crumbled and knocked down. A brilliant execute by Lake Club, somehow able to push through a fatal funnel.
Wow, I mean, those big window pushes, they are so risky, and you have to be absolutely on top of your violence of action. But the way that Le Club played that, it worked on all fronts. The containment was good. They were covering the white stairs. They were applying a lot of pressure, and it's odd to see Vale be pushed so far out of position like that. They weren't able to kind of confidently hold things down, and there wasn't even that first element, the nitro cell, to stop that push from happening. They didn't even need to get the plant down, and Le Club still won. And that's a problem. I think if you look into that round in the future, especially when it gets low time and Le Club are forced to make a move, you need to anticipate that and try to use what's left of the surprise factor to your advantage. Maybe what that is stationing somebody with a shotty close behind the bunks. And so when you see Le Club force in for the big window push, they don't just get it off flawlessly. They have to suffer some attrition for it. And it's not for free. On the dorm site, when you're coming in for those floods, as we so often see the rounds end in, you have to be prepared to stop that and to dominate it.
And Sticula, that's the problem. there was a shotgun looking at big window. They had all their gun barrels trade on big window, but they just missed their shots at the end of the day. And Lake Club can replicate that exact same style of execute going down to the basement. When they lost this round in round 1, it was simply because they stalled out on the west. They weren't able to break down the clash. They weren't able to break down the live and quick swings. So this means it's an opportunity to replicate that. You can still push from the west if you want, but you have to couple it with more pressure. Not just from the south side either through J Bunker or those north stairs, but be very careful that you don't find yourself just stuck in that fatal funnel. If you're not familiar with what that term is, it's basically just a kill box, or the person doesn't have a lot of ways to move and they just have to move forward, and the defense in this case can just hold mouse 1. They don't really need to aim because their bullets will guarantee their hit on that target, but you still have to be quick, push together, and understand how the defense is playing.
Good speed here from Le Club. They're gathering all of this map control here on the first floor. No clash this time, which is an interesting switch from Vale. Maybe they're prepared to encounter somebody on the side of Le Club to bring denial. Obviously, you've got the Capital, which is one of the best ways to deny the clash, especially in one of those kind of sole individual positions. If you put an asphyxiating bolt on the back of the stairs, well, the clash can't walk backwards now. She doesn't have that safe harbor to fall into, and so you kind of have to, as the clash, I don't know, go for a bikini body and try to spin around in a circle, or just acknowledge your fate at that point. The Club, good map control. They should be able to leverage the hatch. Looked like they were able to get somebody up in that position, but now they have to contest with Psycho. Last time we saw him on the basement, he secured a triple kill. But it wasn't at the beginning of the round, and it wasn't in an opening kill fashion. It was him to bring up the rear after his own team had gotten all of that early success preemptively.
As particularly, we actually find ourselves in the opportunity cost of utility. Why Capital brings so much, you foregone bring out that Maverick, which means you can't open up E-Box at all. There's a Kaid charge on it. Now, sure, you can send a frag grenade downrange if you do want to, well, open that up. And it seems to be a full send from the east for Lake Club. It didn't work out at all for them. 2 of their members have now fallen to the grave, and another one's going to find himself in engagement, fortunately able to win it, but refrags answered instantaneously by the orange defensive roster. Hipper's in a perfect position over by Harry Potter. Devils looks in perfectly the wrong direction, too focused over by the pillar. But nonetheless, a bad position to be in a 1v4.
Dom has a lot to do, and, well, Team Vale's best men among them to try and put a stop to this.
30 seconds left on the clock. Diffuser surrendered over by the blue, and just like that, Afer goes for his quick swing, collecting that headshot, and a perfect way to wrap things up, trying to go for that quick execute, and it just didn't work out at all for them.
Good cleanup towards the end, and the point that you brought up, the lack of the hard breach to open the meeting hatch was so big. And I mean, bringing the Capital, it didn't even really do anything for Le Club because we thought there was the switch. We thought there was, the clash going to be brought again, and that was so effective for Team Vale, but they kind of pulled a fast one. And so Le Club not only brought utility that didn't do anything for them, but they also forgoed having the hard breach that would have allowed them to defeat the Electroclaw. Really well played. That was a huge mistake from Le Club, and Vale, I think, executed it about as perfect as possible. The close angle for Hypers hiding inside of Harry Potter. I mean, they just didn't check it. When you've got such little time like that, you kind of have to make those decisions. Are you going to walk down the stairs and actively check that? You can't drone. There's not enough time to do that. And, if you go to check that, you're leaving yourself open to a multitude of angles. Somebody hiding near Shiko's spot, somebody just swinging out wildly from the E-Box door, or even someone that you didn't spot at Pillar. I mean, there's so many openings there, and honestly, I can't blame Le Club for suffering from that late round mistake, but they needed to kind of acknowledge that if we can't get the E-Box hatch open, that needs to be something that's predetermined in the early round. If you opt to bring the only Hibana, you kind of have to say that we're not going to be able to get that hatch open 100% of the time, and droning that, figuring out if Vale have a Kaid has got to be one of the first priorities.
we're going to be seeing what I refer to as the quaternary bomb site of dining room. And what's already concerning me about this lineup is you only have one set of impact grenades. What makes this strategy so strong is you can burn away all the hard breach utility. But instead, we're actually going to see a buffer room hold over by a small tower. And it's going to be just about every deployable shield under the sun being utilized, as well as those explosive shields of Goyo. It's going to be coupled with frost mats placed underneath those windows. So it's quite an interesting hold that Vale has established, and it's going to force Light Club to really drone out these positions, because if you don't understand those frost mats under those windows, well, you're just going to vault in and find yourself down but not out and unable to be helped to your teammates until they deal with that small tower pressure. And with these, well, placements, you're also going to have to spin those frags if you want to guarantee safe entry into small tower. Frozen will start things off perfectly. An operator with explosive capabilities, the Ash will fall, and the plethora deployable shields will stay up for a little longer.
Afer with another one. I don't even know where that was, all the way from the top of the tower, as now Psycho finds Devils. Le Club's attack has fallen apart before it's even gotten started. And Team Vale are playing this exactly how you would want to. Their extension, it's a tertiary site. You know what that means, Chief? We have to go for a risky strategy. It's something off the cuff, something that Le Club might not be totally prepared for, and after the mistakes of the last round, Le Club are probably going to be a little bit down and out, and they're not going to be totally ready to acknowledge what Team Vale have brought here, which is really a 500 IQ strat. Zag, he's going to rotate. I imagine he'll try to either push up the back tower stairs and creep in from green, or maybe go far out over towards the freezer. But with 5 men up and 60 seconds to go, Le Club are not in a great position to accelerate this round, and you've got to watch the exposing element from Vale. If they're going to peek, if they're going to go wild, every single frag that's, you know, a result of a difficult or, you know, an unwarranted decision, that's one step closer to a potential for Le Club to find themselves in an advantageous position. Valkyrie swinging like mad. Hypers does not care, and still a trading glance, but Zag knows he can't push up those stairs, and so he's got to rotate with 30 seconds. He's going to watch the hatch. Honestly, Le Club, there's not a whole lot of a route back into this round.
2 hard breachers against the world, some of your least lethal operators, but if you have any hard breachers alive and active, you probably want these two. They're gonna have to attempt to show their fangs. They're isolated in every possible scenario. Afer will confirm 1. Limbo on his belly, able to connect with 1. Make that now 2. Forced to go to the pistol. He's tapping away, trying to confirm the headshot. He'll be unable to do so, eventually falling. A brilliant, atypical strategy, but nonetheless, Le Club had no idea how to even approach it, and that's your job as the IGL to immediately identify how the macro strategy has been laid in front of you and start to break it down one step at a time till you reach your final goal. And if you struggle with that type of mentality, you can reverse engineer it. You can say, hey, my goal is a plant over by dining room. How do I get to that step? And you walk your way back till you find your insertion point and your go point.
And, you know, even though that strat had a lot of kind of unusual elements, we don't often see that frost shield. I wish we had gotten kind of more of an in-depth look at that. And the impact that it had, it was kind of like a shield up on the table and one of the walls soft and open. And it's a whole lot of road left in this round. The Club will finish it out in number 7 as they finally end the streak of rounds we saw accumulated by Team Vale. The first of the defenses, a good start. Unfortunate that we didn't catch the first little bit of that round.
Yeah, I would love to see what panned out, because we just saw members of Vale just flying through breaches, just trying to win their gunfights, and it wasn't working out. And I want to return back to a point that you're saying earlier. What on earth are they saying in all chat? Usually we can see what they're saying because they're, you know, saying it in English, and we're like, oh, that's something that you can't say on stream, boys, but I don't know about you, but I don't speak French, and I just see letters, and I'm like, hopefully that's PG. At least keep it that way, por favor.
Unfortunately, they did not offer French at my high school, so I can't bring the translating effort here, but
they did for
the
mine.
Club.
I just took Japanese instead.
You must have went to a... You had Japanese? I had Spanish and German. You must have went to some fancy school.
I took 3 years of Japanese. I don't know a single word of Japanese, other than the most fun word to say. Dinwa Bongle, which means phone number. It's so fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the club one step closer. 3 to 4 for them. This is at least some good effort. I mean, we're kind of inching our way back in, huh, Chief?
One step at a time, slowly but surely, we'll get everything going. We're also going to be updating the overlay so we can actually get our lovely fans in there. But just to remind you, it is Thatcher, Ace, Wamai, and Mira. But again, we're going to have to see how this round pans out. The defense holding very aggressive. They have extensions all throughout the map, and it's also going to be just Dom close to the garage door. There's really no way for him to rotate, so you have to stand his ground and take a gunfight. A good drone might be enough to remove his pressure, but no drones whatsoever found at that position as of now.
Here we go for Hippers over by the garage as Team Vale quick on their entry. Control of master bedroom will fall to them, but they've got the hard wall to get open. Marmalade with the Habana should be able to get this as soon as they clear the electrical up, but that's not going to happen for free, and it could really sideline the speed at which we see this round develop.
Control on the south side, still trying to deal with the pressure over in garage, but they haven't dealt with that at all. That should be a free kill. You just need to establish a crossfire from the door, from the window, from any possible position, but it's a solo duel. 1v1 mono, and it's just not going anywhere. Dom is just hanging out. He's actually rotated away from the garage now over into the corridor itself, as well as those laundry stairs, allowed to continue just to isolate and waste plenty of time, a position that Vale needs to deal with ASAP.
Here we go for Afer. Close up. The ace, or rather, Ash breaching around in his hands. It does open the floor, but, I mean, this round is just slower and slower. The tempo here for Vale, it's far off, and they need to get this back under control. Marmalade could be successful. You watch the entry, you watch the Zofia of Psycho as he tries to get into Hit. If they can get this cross angle, they could be able to shut down the Cade. If he's overexposed, if Devil swings too wide, he could be felled, but you can see Zofia's really hesitant to drop down. He understands the wall completely open. Not a single part of it reinforced. He does drop. That's a risky position for him to be in. The workout for Hypers, who's just magically inside of kids' dorms. Zag and David gone. Frozen will find Devils as all of a sudden it's Limbo and Dom ready to clean up what's left of the round. And they're both off the objective. No nitro for Dom. He's not going to be able to deny the plant, and it's nearly down on the ground. In fact, now it will be. The 40-second clock begins. Limbo goes down. He tried to rotate up from the main stairs, but it's unsuccessful. The intel, it's got to be here. They know Dom's back down at white. He's got to pull up, but he's still being pushed. Vale are eager as ever to shut this down as the ass goes for the wide swing. Two of them line up. Afer will go down, but Frozen readies the aim to get the second. That's round 8. Team Vale, very quick and sporadic near the end.
And we talk about attackers getting tunnel vision on roam clearing, where they say, oh, there's offsite pressure over here, let us deal with that. But we never really talk about the defense who gets tunnel vision on their roam clear. And we saw that exact scenario pan out in round 8, where there was 2 members of Lake Club still offsite, still trying to challenge the attackers. But why their teammates started to fall on site, it forces the offsite pressure to rotate back to the bomb site quickly. However, if you find yourself somewhere on the other side of the map in a position that's very difficult to rotate back through, well, you're going to find yourself in a fatal funnel, which you as a defender want to put the attackers in, not be in yourself. And you have to have a contingency plan for your roam, because sometimes you're not going to find a kill in that roam. Sometimes you're going to find yourself in a gunfight, but you're alive. You have to get back to your bomb site, and the white stairs on Oregon is a death sentence. The armory stairs itself is also a death sentence. It's just so difficult to push through those positions, and you as a defender need to be working your way back to the bomb site about at that 60-second mark, if not sooner.
I mean, the timing in that round just, it had me absolutely off my rocker. It seemed like at the start of the round, things were going swimmingly, and then the electroclot was just kind of sitting pretty. It wasn't cleared for so long. Eventually, Vale were able to rotate that, and if I had to put one player as my MVP in that round. I think it's got to be between Psycho, who pushed down. He was confident to take control of Attic and Pit. But there's one player that definitely prevails among the others. It's Hypers, who bails into the main window and just kills the club. I mean, he got a double kill with the F2. It's a great weapon, and the club, it just looked like they didn't have any idea. And, excuse me, we just picked up that round at a moment's notice, and it was just like a work of theater.
And you're talking about, well, kills being so important. Well, Mr. Multi-Kill himself, David over there, is sitting at a breadstick. 1 in 7. Such an influential individual, where he is constantly able to change the pace of a round, win gunfights, and the man is unable to do so. It's applied a lot of pressure onto his teammates. Fortunately, Limbo's a phenomenal player, and actually everybody on that former Hostile Action roster is good players, but they just need to all just come together as a roster and start to win those gunfights, because when you have Afer, who's just slamming at every single corner, winning his ones as he tends to, you're going to have to start to change things up. Vertical pressure being applied, like Club's defense is going to start to crumble, particularly over by South Games, but Limbo, as we were highlighting earlier, is attempting to find more frags and extended roam over by Dining.
I think he really chased Hypers right out of that position, and Dom, did he just jump out the window to get the confirm? Really ballsy play, but it works great for the Valkyrie. And now the club with man advantage. Control of Attic, though, in the hands of Vale. That's one big point that they have going for them. The frag grenade sails through to the deployable shield, and I think it does manage to detonate it, dealing a tiny bit of chip damage there onto David. Now, as Marmalade seems to have secured the opening in the walk-in closet wall. Frozen, he's still trying to bide his time. They've got a good avenue to push into the objective, but they have to hold off. They recognize that we've got 3 nitro cells on the side of the club. If you get too antsy, if you don't spend the right amount of time wasting those, you're going to walk right into a death sentence, and it's going to be an explosive one where the club are going to obliterate the entirety of your hold. The vertical play from the club is good as well. They can deny the plant close up at the pit door. And so Vale, they need an entry pick to bolster their push, especially now that they're down by Hippers. Prone angle from the Ash. It's Frozen who meets the Grizzly and Zag with the SMG-11 as Dom tries to peek the green hallway window. David on a Psycho now. It's only 2 players left. Zag is felled instead by Afer, but Marmalade traded back and forth. David will get another one as he does manage to get away from that breadstick. The club, round number 9, finally some back and forth action here on Oregon.
Another linear execute, and this time it didn't work at all well. You need to have some type of map control, and when you have attackers flying out through the pit side, you have them flying out through trophy, that is more or less one angle that you're holding. Now sure, you can make the argument, oh well, now I'm challenging the metal, or I'm challenging kids' dorms, but that's still looking in the same direction. And the defense can tandem swing those positions and isolate you one by one. And Vale found themselves in that exact scenario. That's why it's critical. Why it's always a fan of opening up every window on that bomb site. Kids' dorms window. You never have to enter through that position. You just open it up to apply a little bit of pressure. It could be pseudo pressure, but that doesn't really matter. You want to put the defense in the awkward position. You have the exact same option with big window, but big window is going to be a little bit more powerful, because that can be a critical insertion point. Again, you don't have to utilize big windows as an insertion point. You don't ever have to put an attacker over there other than open that window. But that pressure will change up how a defensive team ends up playing. And you need to always be applying pressure as an attacker from every single area.
Seemed like one thing that we really had trouble with for the club when they were on their offenses. A lot of the attacks, they were either lacking a plan or lacking a really dynamic plan. And that's something you always have to look at. Especially when you're trying to take control of the map, you have to focus on the fundamentals of close quarters combat, which is your speed, your surprise, and your violence of action. And we didn't see those really dynamic entry points. It was almost like you would kind of go for the same 1 or 2 things every single time, and there wasn't much variance. So far, Vale have had a few rounds where that's looked the case, and the other ones are much more vanilla, which I wonder is kind of just a side effect of the fact that they're new as a team, and so they haven't had much time to be able to create those in-depth drills. to kind of set yourself up in a position where you know this is my entry point, the one that I'm most comfortable with taking, one I always practice on. And the club, I don't think really have that same excuse because they've been playing together as a team back on hostile actions now for about 6 months, which is a point I saw we had brought up yesterday. And you need to be kind of prepped as a team. You need to know what your teammates are comfortable with and be able to fill those gaps if necessary.
Now, Hostile Action did participate in Season 4, but they found themselves in a position where they would end up disbanding and leaving the league due to some personal issues. And it's actually really refreshing to see this roster back more or less with the exact same iteration and playing brilliantly. And again, sure, they're going against a roster that is relatively new, but they're all players that have participated at high levels of Siege. And to go into round 10 by a round, well, down, that's still a big accomplishment. The new Hostile Action Play Club is definitely showing that they're capable of playing with the big dogs. And even if they don't qualify, they're in a perfect position to learn from everybody they've played with.
Yeah, I honestly, I totally agree with you. We're seeing a lot of close games from them. You look at the matches that they've played, and it's just been not a performance we would have expected from them 2 or 3 months ago. Limbo will claim the opener, further driving home the point of the club's improvement as it's a wide swing. Dom really pressured, but the Ash can't continue and totally confirm for it. I mean, never mind, she can. I guess Afer's got just the biggest cojones in the whole world, leaping over the banister now as he's managed to completely forward the control. Vale have got Pillar under their thumbs, and by proxy, a lot of pressure put onto E-Box and the stock Hall. One thing they don't have is control of Elbow. They'll need to take this, but Hypers, excuse me, I keep getting that one swapped up. He's still feeling fairly loose. Moving inside supply room, watching the freezer door eagerly. He just completely crosses over. I don't know if there's someone behind him. There is. Zach's just waiting inside Elbow, still hiding there. And this sneak play might just have worked. Spots the arm of the smoke. He's got to battle 3 opponents at once. The air jab now out with the pistol. Hypers will find a second, cut down now by Devils. Only Psycho left. He'll get the first. Low HP on Zag. They've got the intel. He's hiding prone, but the time, it'll run out in round 10. And Le Club clinch it by a matter of milliseconds.
What happened to Hyper there? He was shooting with his AR. He went away from his AR. He went to his pistol. He was shooting with his pistol and didn't kill anybody? Didn't land? Did he find himself in the worst possible position? The Potato Fest? Like,
he was
what happened? He was the best position. He should have slammed everybody. Like, nobody from Play Club knew he was there, but somehow made a mistake. I think he said something about a clutch and not clutching would be my guess.
Yeah.
He said a sarcastic good clutch is my understanding of the French language, which is none.
Nice. We're learning. We're working our way up here. But
I think we need to DM them after the fact, like, hey,
we need like
guys?
a transcript.
Yeah, can we get a translator in here? Just somebody to dive into the casting booth just to relay us what on earth is happening in all chat. Is he French Canadian?
Yeah.
Oh, easy. Well, we'll call him up. I think he's banned here, though. I think Perma banned him.
Well, the club were just in a position where they were behind, but the performance of their team elevates them. 5-5 now, they're equal. And who would have guessed that this map would go so far? Round 11, they are still keeping their head above water, but the club are performing incredibly well. And I mean, really just destroying the expectations. This is not Hostile Actions. This is Le Club, the team that went flawless in the first round of play and now are playing expertly. And their performance has just been phenomenal so far. I really like the discipline that we see them use. They are not, you know, totally kind of out of position in every single moment. Le Club know when it's time to peak and when it's time to play a little bit more passively. Afer, he's wasting no time. Another kind of west to east take. We see this on a lot of teams. You'll set a pre-placed drone so you understand which areas of this side are clear, and it allows you to just be a little bit more expeditious. Control again, so that we're going for a tertiary hold. That means Team Vale, they need to get some vertical aspects. They've got Hypers who moves in. He'll air jab off the main stairs, and Psycho's kind of just keeping an eye out, making that security over by the trophy room door. Meanwhile, Devil's holding off at white. I would be very surprised to see Frozen just bail into this window, and yeah, he's not going to go for that. He'll play really passive out inside the bus. Not an angle we see used all too often.
but we need to take control of that top floor quickly. That pressure needs to be applied. It's only coming from one direction towards the east. You need to mount it over towards that westmost side. However, that will start to come. It's actually going to come from the south. Steel dealing with that Malusi David. He will not have access to a Nitro Cell. He's already spent his explosive utility of those Pokeballs and double lurking over by the white stairs. But he's preoccupied in an engagement that could be taking place. Frozen's going to try to yeet himself through the bus window. Hyper will find the first casualty. That is now David removed from kids' dorms. And well, Devil, he's going to have to go for the challenge. He has no way of rotating, and he's going to have to swing downstairs. It's an impossible position for him to be in. He will win his gunfight, and there's no crossfire. There was no answer back. A huge oversight, and that might be the nail in the coffin.
Oh, no.
But he decides to get too aggressive and overpeak.
Wow, excellent coverage there. Hypers will get another one as it looks like the entirety of the A and B sites are full clear. It's just Zag left. We can see his outlines, but Vale still need to acquire that intel. The Cade rotating out inside the Rose hallway, and in that battle he will find Psycho, but the trade in that kill is that now Team Vale have a full understanding of just exactly where the low HP Cade is. Prone angle way at the back of the dining room. He'll readjust not to overexpose himself to the Cade, and it's Hypers will pick that one off as he makes a phenomenal success for Team Vale, pushing them over the line now to match point as he collected a triple kill on that round. Excellent performance on the Nomad.
And Devil, he's a great player. He's incredibly smart. He can win his gunfights. And I know his roster was at a man disadvantage. He had to take a fight, but that was not the fight to take. He either moves himself over to the freezer stairs at door frames and holds a crossfire with his teammate playing in security. That way you guarantee the refrag, but he elected to do none of that. He decided to run at the attackers? Again, like, I'm not sure what he was trying to accomplish there, because he wouldn't even been able to get the kill because he was looking at the ground. His gun was at the ground. So, like, again, you have to be smart with how you take engagements. Utilize micro positioning. We hear that all the time from players that say, I'm not the best at winning gunfights, but you know what I can do? I can win a gunfight based on my positioning. And that's what you should do. You shouldn't be going for 50-50 gunfights ever. They should be 80-20 gunfights in your position. And, you know, that 20%, that's going to come down to your mechanical skill.
Exactly. And, you know, when you look at kind of what changes and what differentiates kind of just a rank player who's got all that gun skill and, you know, maybe the support player, the flex on your team who's not, you know, the first one that's consistently making the entry and you count on to win all those fights, what they've got positioning. And they know, you know, if I sit at this angle, where am I exposed to on a spectrum of different areas and how can I play to make myself the least exposed. So not only do I get the leverage of surprise, that I know when they peek me, that I'm in cover, I have concealment, that I can take the first shot in that fight, but also that, you know, if we see something happen where you just get flooded and it's like everyone runs at you at the same time, the sky is falling, that you're prepared for that and you can at least maybe have a route to fall back on. And, you know, some of that has been absent so far. And I think it's kind of why we're having this come down so close. We're back in the game though. The timeout is done for as the club have realized what needs to happen. They've discussed amongst their team. Now we will go to the final defense, round number 12, Dorms.
It's so refreshing to see the pause tactical timeout feature be added back into Rainbow Six Siege. And what baffles me, that it was taken out at the beginning. We had it in year one, and it just poof, went away, but we can forget about that. It's here in year 5, and that's the most important thing. The defense has decided that they want to go back upstairs to dorms. This was a bomb site that they were able to win the second time they went to. They would end up losing in round 8, but able to win it in round 9. They're going to be bringing out a strategy that has access to 3 deployable shields, as well as those 3 Malusi wub-wubs. That is a lot of explosive utility the attackers have to deal with. And in previous iterations of the attacking lineup, it would have worked out perfectly because they are bringing a set of frag grenades. Frag grenades have gone away in favor of a buck who lost his nades just about a year ago. So you have 3 Ash breaching launchers, 2 from Zofia, which means 1 hard utility will be here to stay for Lake Club.
One thing that I kind of wanted to let everybody know about is the fact this is best of one. So there's not additional maps, there's not anything else. So if you missed out, you might understand why that this is so important that we see battles won from round to round. Great trade there from Psycho, taking off the head of Limbo. He lost Hypers, but still, I don't know if I would call that an even trade for the offense, considering you might have lost a couple of air jabs and some flashbangs. Hopefully for Limbo, he had all of his ADSs deployed. I think if he didn't, his teammates probably would have been yelling at him. But Team Vale, somewhat on the back foot here. It's all about the adaptation now, and this is a big round. You want to close it out before you exit regulation and go into overtime, because that gives the club an opportunity to kind of flip-flop, to give themselves, you know, a leg up to talk more about the defenses. Vale have got the momentum here and now. Match point. Don't throw away this opportunity. For the dorms hold, Vale are going for kind of an unusual take. Oftentimes when we see this west-east clear, you'll see a lot of focus on the big window, which we do have from Marmalade, but honestly, I can't tell if Vale are going to totally commit to just jumping in from the big window immediately. And I'm going to say this outright, I don't like big window takes a lot of times because they feel very cluttered, very clumsy and chaotic. Once you get down to the execute, you have to be totally prepared for it. Le Club pulled out an excellent big window take in one of the earlier rounds that we saw, which was just flawless. Probably the best attempt and best iteration of that take that I've seen so far. You look at the utility though. You've got the smoke, he's still up, he's able to deny the big window once you push in, but you don't really have anybody sitting close behind the bunks area. And that's because of the excellent vertical play we see being used by Frozen. Textbook, eliminating all of these angles, but Frozen, he's being chased through the vertical angles, escapes with only a sliver of HP, but still needs to worry about a possible repeat from inside a kid's dorms. 40 seconds to go as this could be the final round. 5-6 for Team Vale. Shots ring out from Devils on an A for 4 versus 3 as the execute has to come soon, but the manpower just isn't there for Team Vale as the kills come across the board for Le Club. Marmalade looking to find the deep shot inside of the kid's bedroom. Psycho taking up the white stairs. He's shut down without a second thought. Marmalade on to Devils, but Zach chokes him out with the final breath of the toxic canister. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to overtime.
And every one of these Oregon games that we've seen on the broadcast, whether we're here on the primary or all the way down to our supporting streams, they go into overtime. And it's going to come down to who starts on defense first and who has access to 2 rounds on defense. Now, normally in Storm Competitive Series, we have unlimited overtime, which means you have to win 2 rounds in a row. And if you don't, your overtime bracket will reset until you actually achieve 2 rounds in a row. And this league has seen the second longest game of competitive Rainbow Six Siege going up to 24 rounds. But here, we run traditional overtime, at least during qualifiers, where you only have access to 3 rounds, up to round 15, and it's first to actually achieve that too. It doesn't matter if it's in a row. And that's why most teams, they want to select defense first, because on most maps, here on Oregon, that is the case. You're going to have a higher percentage of winning these rounds. So a lot of pressure is going to be applied to Le Club to make sure they do not make mistakes on their defense.
Yeah, the big thing about infinite overtime is it's better for more of those standalone matches. When you're in a Swiss bracket like this, before the next round drops, all the matches have to finish. So if you just have 2 really good teams that just play for super long, everybody else is going to be sitting there scratching their heads and, you know, saying, gosh, how long are we going to have to wait for these 2 titans to finish up their match? And so we stick with the traditional overtime, which does have that big impact on the defense, as you talked about. And so, honestly, you know, it's a leg up for the club, but it's also an opportunity for Team Vale to show their prowess and to convince us that they can play well across the offense and the defense, that they're not just a one-trick pony and a one-sided team.
Well, it's actually like a Empire that won 2 rounds of attack yesterday on their overtime rounds in Oregon. So it is possible to do everything under the sun. It is going to be traditional roam clear, trying to remove any offsite pressure for Le Club. There is some, but nowhere near where the attackers have currently found themselves clearing. And actually, that offsite pressure is now retreated back down over towards the north, and they'll be hanging out by the tower sign. Psychosis getting very aggressive, already into Fraser. We haven't even hit the 1 minute being burned mark, and he's sending bullets down range, whizzing over Devils behind that deployable shield. Devils on a long angle. This is a perfect opportunity to bring out a TCSG if you want access to long-range optics. He'll instead go for the OQ2, a gun that still has access to 1.5 times sight, so it's not totally unusable in this situation, but a TCSG just hits the truck.
Here we go for Vale, stacking up at the back stairs as the utility burn begins for Marmalade. The hatch and meeting open, the flashbang drop down. Hypers tears open blue bunker barricade as Afer looked like expended one of his breaching rounds. I imagine that was to clear either barbed wire or a Malusi Banshee. Either way, successful. Now look at the positions from Le Club. Nobody really inside pillars. Blue bunker control is forfeited. Now Zag has reinforced off the rotated elbow. A lot is really hinging on not only the performance of Dom. If he's going to go for this full late rotate, he can maybe get inside meeting, and that could just make this round a disaster. X-Skyros will open up the single wall as Zag, it looked like, actually got down. I don't know if that was a shot we saw off screen or the one that we just had expunged there. Afer, long fight. The smoke is down as Frozen tries to go for the confirm, but meanwhile Limbo coming up on the flank. Dom will rotate back inside the objective. 45 seconds to go.
There's still off-site pressure. That's a Malusi roaming upstairs. Limbo's in a perfect position to collect himself some kills if there aren't flank drones and air jabs being placed throughout the map. But if he sends one bullet down range, that should alert everybody that they are being flanked. But the bomb is being planted. Where is the answer from Le Club? It hasn't come out yet. The bomb has confirmed on the deck. 2 members remain. Now make that one. It was a flank from the attackers. Vale from behind. They punish Le Club for their defense. They had no understanding of where they're being shot. Hyper on a 3K with 3 of them just lining up for him. The Malusi Wubwubs was over on that side of the map. Where was the audio cues though?
Yeah, you have to be asking yourself that, because it's not like it's one Banshee that's like, I don't know, 10 or 15 meters away. That one is in close proximity with 2 defenders waiting right near it. So, you know, maybe it was kind of the haze of overtime. You know, it's a round that you have to win. And so sudden noise from the Banshee kind of gets overlooked, but you can't be overlooking that. The rotate from that back angle totally compromised Le Club's hold, and it just crumbled afterwards. Vale, they were fairly strong in the push and how they went about that. They leveraged the plant. They were fighting, playing really scrappy, a lot of close skirmishes that they won, and they were able to force Le Club back from the possibility of denying the plant. And you take all that, you take Hypers with an excellent play pushing down the lobby, and you take the excellent reaction of, I want to say it was a Zofia, who flicked around and just blasted the Malusi when she tried to flank down the stairs. You have all of those kind of perfect storm elements, but Team Vale were on top of them in the heat of the moment. And it's teams like that that stay calm and collected under pressure that you'll see find success in overtime. The first offense round now for Team Vale is they've got the luxury to play their defense.
And you know, we were critical of David early on, and he was sitting at 1-7. Coming back to 5-10, that's pretty respectable. He's only died 3 times after we called him out, and able to collect 4 kills. That is technically a positive ratio. However, if he was able to perform like he has been doing in the second half of this series, it could be a different performance altogether from Le Club. And now it's going to come on David, playing on that secondary entry role. It's going to be incredibly critical for him to push his teammates into a position where they have control of the map, and they're able to apply that crossfires. Clash will be making her return. She was back in round 1, and she's now back here in round 14. And tasing poor David. His life force is being drained 1 laser shot at a time.
This kind of reminds me of the round where we had Le Club bring the Capital with the sole purpose of clearing the Clash, or at least that's the purpose that we had seen, and it left them without a Maverick, which just totally depleted the round and any opportunity that Le Club had. You do have both the hard breachers. It looks like Limbo already active inside meeting. He'll be focused on getting open the hatch, and David is tasked with sitting still on the tower stairs to try and make sure Frozen doesn't get too antsy and pushes up too far. Psycho supporting from below. I wonder if he's going to actively contest the holes in the hatch or if he's just sitting on the angle for the back stairs. It looks like that's what it is. So if Frozen communicates this properly, the club are going to have such a difficult time taking control of the back stairs because you've got a clash in your face, which, just like a Monty, is not something you can totally avoid. And Psychosis, if he's still comfortable in that spot, can provide plenty of support. The prone angle will find Psycho, but jumping up, Hypers will gun down Zag for it. Now a second, actually not. David will improve his performance yet again. 4 versus 3 for Lake Club, trying to get onto this site, but the clash, one of the final 3 defenders, that's not the best situation because Clash, sometimes we like to say she doesn't exactly have a gun in the fight. You know, she's got that shield up, and so you have to make the decision, are you going to stall the push with the Clash or take out that SCS5 and put the fight to the offense?
The Pocket F2, as I call it, it's a phenomenal weapon to have, but it's such a slow time to pull it out of your pocket, and you're better off just tasing the poor attackers into oblivion. But with the man advantage, like Club's in a perfect way to deal with that class. You can just bully her with utility. You have access to frag grenades, which have already been spent from Limbo. It could deal with her quickly. You can also utilize those concussion grenades. Unfortunately for David, he still has them. He has utilized those impacts already. So every tool is in the toolbox for Lake Club. That with that man advantage, they're still going to have to go for this plan. Clash seems to know that she's on an island. She's going to start to fall closer back, deeper into her bomb site, and Limbo is putting the bomb down. Tired to fly out, but it will be Nitro Cells that fly. Connecting with Limbo, Devil able to find one. 0-0 on the clock. David falls on the diffuser. It is game over. 2v2 post-plant. Clash will now fall, all on Marblade, an SMG-11 specialist, but she doesn't even ADS in time. Just Dom saves a round for Lake Club, guaranteeing us round 15, which will be the final round of this battle.
It was a tough ask in the final dying moments in a 4 versus 3. I think one unfortunate circumstance is the fact that you had Malusi playing the long angle inside Freezer, but she was the one with the Nitro Cell and the ability to more passively deny the plant. If maybe Smoke had borrowed that Nitro earlier in the round, he could have lobbed it over from the safety of the rotate and denied the plant without having to haphazardly actually just peek, which did cost the Malusi her life. And so that round, it was very clustered, chaotic towards the end, and it looked like at any moment that Team Vale might have been able to put themselves up and over the line and to take an 8-6, but we'll have to go through all 15 rounds of regulation and now into overtime. Basement again here. Last time we went this site, very fresh in our memory from that first overtime round where it was the Malusi Banshee that we spent a lot of time talking about. That distraction in the audio cue, which just didn't work for Lake Club. Got to pay a little bit more attention. We go into this round. It's one of the first times we've seen kind of the Castle Mozzie mute. I wonder if this is going to be a meeting extension.
You're 100% correct. It is a meeting extension. And just to remind you, the stakes of this series, it's not just winning round 4 of the Storm Competitive Series qualifier. No, it is to be crowned the best French-Canadian roster to have ever touched Rainbow Six Siege, at least as of today, 2/11/2021. At least temporarily, which might get taken down, at least at some point in time. But nonetheless, both these rosters are fighting for prime. Actually, it's 1 French-Canadian versus 5 French-Canadian, so I don't know who you can consider being the best French-Canadian if Hyper's the only French-Canadian from Vale. But nonetheless, they had some banter before, and it's really come to show in this lobby. They've been beaming each other, but all that quick typing they've done no longer matters. You have one single objective. It is to win this round, and 30 seconds has already been spent on this roam clear, and you're gonna have to start to expedite.
Well, Team Vale are at least going to look to acknowledge the nature of this extended roam so far, and you sort of have a few decisions that you have to make in the way that you're going to go about this. I think the most prevailing choice that we see made is to just contest it and to go for the full clear, or you could try to go for the rush, but this is overtime. It's round 15, and it's the decider between which of these two teams goes undefeated into the next round. And a rush is so risky. I think it makes more sense for Team Vale to go with a more measured option, one that they know, it's more reliable, and they're not just going to suffer because of a loss of a gunfight once you get into the site on what would be a rush. They're going to have to defeat this extension, but you look at the time and also the success of the picks. With the hatch open, that's one thing they won't have to get done. Frozen opens up the castle barricade with the Surrey torch, but Hypers will claim the opening pick as he finds Devils, and there's also a lot of damage done on a David. So if he goes down, now you've lost Devils, you've lost David, who we know in the clutch moments can get these huge multi-kills. That could be just disastrous to end this round and to allow Vale to execute, not only with 60 seconds left, but also at a 5 versus 3 in that instance.
Vale with full control of the north side of the map, but they have yet to rotate any of their attackers over towards the south to try to replicate what they did in the previous round. But since they have the man advantage, you don't necessarily need to do that. You can just go for the full bully the defenders in the bomb site. Trades back and forth, but technically like Club will be the better, so they were able to get 2, deliver them to equal man count, but instantaneously falling as Hyper's going to get himself another kill. 2v3, 30 seconds left, and Dom in a very tight angle. Psychosis doesn't know he's there. He might lose his gunfight, but Psychosis is better, confirming that headshot. Now a 1v3, all on the line for David. He has to keep his team in this game. He has to win these 3 frags, but he's now in a post plan. He doesn't really know where the attackers are. He hears the audio cue. He knows they're a meter away from him, but bullets are whizzing over his head. He has so little HP. He'll take the firefight and lose. Psychosis wins the round, and just like that, the French-Canadian roster of Lake Club falls. That was disgusting.
I mean, what was that? 8-7 for Vale. Who knew that map was going to go all the way? Full overtime, 15 rounds. Great showing there. A lot of very exciting rounds. Some fun stuff. Some chatter back and forth between the teams in that French-Canadian deposition here. 8-7. It's over. And that's the problem with the best of 1. You've got one map and you have to be on the ready. As soon as you get into it, you have to have the terrorist hunts, the warm-up scrims, and you need to be prepared to fight at your best. Unfortunately, I think maybe if David had been able to frag as we normally expect him to do, that one could have ended a little bit quicker and maybe wouldn't have been a loss. But we have hindsight, it's 2020, and we can't always hope that one player does his best. That's a close attempt, and for Lake Club to push Team Vale all the way to 15 rounds, that's a trophy to put in your cap.
And just looking at teams that are concluding round 4 PDHM would take a decisive victory 7-2 over Bilquan. And that was a game that we actually were debating on casting. And also another game we're debating on casting. Kevin 7 versus Amins. That would also be a 7-2. So Sticula, it seems like we have chosen correctly with which game to broadcast, because this was phenomenal. Round 15, every Orchid game we seem to want to show, it just goes a distance. Slaughterhouse Bravo versus Aggro, that would go in a 7-3 in favor of the Oldakar roster of Slaughterhouse. Impact would take on Amarok Orange in a 7-3 victory for Impact. Something to Prove would go against the new iteration of Akara for a 7-3 victory in favor of Something to Prove. And honestly, game's still coming on through, but I'm impressed what I see currently.
You know, Chief, I'm going to spotlight one of the match results. Jimmy and the boys. They managed to pull it together, and they got a 7-2 versus Aquatic. So I'm really rooting for Jimmy Buckets. He's a good player. I love his whole energy. But that's the end of round 1. It was a long game, so I don't imagine we'll have too terribly long of a break. I think a lot of the games are probably pretty close to finishing up, so we'll wait on word from production. But, I mean, any other thoughts on that game?
Honestly, I am so happy for that was just a good game. Like, those are one of those games you really don't care who wins. It just puts a smile on your face to watch, and yeah. I just love games like that. You wanted to go to the distance. We had no idea who was going to win 15. We spent the entire time talking, it can go this way, it can go that way. And honestly, I think it went the way that no one saw coming. Again, like you're saying, we're waiting on a few games to conclude. And Ancients won versus Floppa. Yep, Floppa making its return. I'd be curious to see what the scoreline of that bad boy is.
I have to say, I'm probably rooting for the Floppas. I think
we all are.
They're the fan favorites in a lot of the matches that we see. Kevin 7, a pretty decisive loss to a men's. I think that one, even if it was a bit of a faster game, it would have been one that I think could tell us a lot, because Kevin 7, they're kind of more of a pickup team. Men's are a roster that I think a lot of people kind of write off, which is, I don't totally agree with that. They've got Paper, they've got Primal. I mean, they play really well, especially if you look at some of the games that they played in SCL. I know that they took a series win versus the old Team 99 roster, which was really surprising. And, they're not a team that you can just say, oh, they're middle of the line, just forget about them. We won't do any extra work. We'll just come into the game and play how we normally do. And Madden's, they're a serious qualifier, and I could see them definitely lodging their position in the closed qualifier with, maybe a 6th or 7th place position here in the second open qual.
People talk about IMAT being an underrated entry fragger. I think Paper might be in that ballpark too, because he does exactly what IMAT does. He just flies in, wins gunfights, and slaughters anything on his reticle. Like, he's one of those players we just love to watch because of his fluidity and how he takes map control. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be stepping away quickly. We're not sure how long round 4 will take to wrap up, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back with you as soon as round 5 publishes. We're getting word from production. It'll be about 10 minutes.